Hi, my name is Jill, and I'm here to talk about my daughter Lexi. Lexi's 27 years old. She's my only child, my husband and I's, and when she was born, she's just the light of our world, and she was our whole world and still is.
I grew up in a really loving home. It was just me and my parents. I never questioned whether I was loved. We did everything together. We had problems like every family. I just always was surrounded by love growing up.
I noticed a change in Lexi when she first started high school. Not anything out of the ordinary, I would think, for a normal teenager. Lacking in confidence, trying to find herself. And those were some things that stood out to me. I was a little bit on alert, but I just thought, oh, that's probably just a normal teenage phase to go through.
So my junior year in high school was my hardest year. I got intoxicated, I went to a party, and I was raped. And I had a really hard time accepting that. And I didn't want my parents to find out because I really thought it was my fault. And I was just really scared of them being disappointed in me more than anything. And I just didn't really know how to cope with that.
She quit playing sports. She loved to play volleyball. She loved playing golf. She was really good at both. She became increasingly angry, especially with her dad and I. We weren't able to talk with her about anything.
I ended up taking all of my hurt, pain, frustration out on my parents because they were really safe targets for me. I knew they'd still love me no matter how I acted, but I just turned to alcohol and drugs to numb the pain of what I was feeling. And I started drinking, blackout drinking. I was drinking before school, after school, during school, was drinking all the time, and I was having a hard time after the rape happened to be able to stop crying or to get out of the bathroom at school because I was embarrassed, I was mortified. It was just really hard for me to cope with that. And a friend brought me some hydrocodone, which is derived from opium, and it was a painkiller, and it was the first thing I took that really killed the pain. And I just started using those, abusing them, and that's kind of where my addiction really took off.
Is she being a normal teenager? Is this right? Is this just normal and something a phase that we need to get through? You know, it's so hard to know. It's so hard to detect whether your kids are turning to drugs or alcohol.
So the next 4 years after that, I was drinking, doing more drugs, and I was just adding to my list of things that I had tried. And I really thought that I was just having a good time. I thought I was just partying, I was young. It felt really normal. A lot of the people I hung out with were doing the same thing. So I couldn't really see that I had a problem. And like I said, I thought it was fun until it started not to be so fun.
There were a lot of tears, a lot of sleepless nights. It's very, very difficult when you see that your child is in pain, and that is your number one job as a parent, is to protect them and to make sure that they're happy and that they have a good life. And it was becoming increasingly obvious that there was more here. And her dad and I decided to seek counseling for Lexi and not make it optional for her. We just really thought there was something deeper and more of a problem. And we had her go see a counselor, and it didn't go very well. She was very angry at us. The counselor actually told us that she felt like something was very wrong, but we had to be okay with the fact that we may not ever know what the issue that Lexi was having, because until Lexi was ready to talk to us, we weren't going to get any answers. And that was very, very tough.
I think most people have a picture or an image in their head of what an addict looks like or what an addict is. I was very naive, and I thought that an addict was a homeless person, someone sleeping under a bridge, somebody in jail. I didn't even know that I could be an addict. I had great parents, I came from a good family, all these things. I looked good on the outside. Looking back at that now, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that was how my brain processed that at the time. But I had started smoking Oxycontin and smoking crack. And still, I just thought this was fun. I was not addicted. It was still just normal for me, and I thought that it was normal for most people.
Lexi moved away. She moved to Spokane to go to college, and it became really hard to monitor just really how she was doing, because she just showed us the sides of her that she wanted us to see. We started to grasp the magnitude of Lexi's problems when she would make plans to come home, or we would make plans to go see her, and then she would get out of those plans at the very last minute. She had some very erratic behavior. She was very emotional. She had requests for money that didn't make sense to us also. After several attempts of trying to ask Lexi if she was using drugs, and she wasn't willing to answer us or be honest with us, really. She kept avoiding us. I just finally, out of desperation, just told her that we would be willing to send her to rehab and that we would support her in that. And she took us up on the offer. And in 2014, she entered her first rehab. Everything seemed to be going fairly well. It was all a very new experience for her dad and I. And of course, we questioned everything, whether we had her in the right rehab. That was really difficult too, because we didn't have friends or family at the time that were in a similar situation. So we really felt alone. We didn't know what was best for Lexi. So that was a very pivotal point. It was a very scary point for us.
After I went to my first rehab is when I started shooting up heroin, and that progressed into shooting up meth, and I was doing Xanax, just everything I could get my hands on. Heroin was my drug of choice. Anything to kind of numb the feelings and to not feel the way I was feeling. This first rehab kind of started this cycle of rehab, relapse, rehab, relapse. It didn't seem like it was gonna end, and I had given up hope of ever having a different life. At first, I would get clean and think, oh, this is it, this is the time, only to fall back, relapse, and kind of sit there wondering how I'd gotten there again. And it was hard to continue having faith that my life could ever change when it wasn't changing.
The avoidance, we would call, she wasn't available. So she was really trying to avoid how she was really doing, until she just wasn't doing very well. And she got into a really violent relationship and then needed our help. And of course we went and we helped her and we brought her home.
I got to a place where I just really wanted to die. I couldn't see a point in living anymore if this was all that life was going to be for me. I did start doing things that I had never imagined I would do. And it started with little things like a lie here, or degrading myself morally or coming away from my morals. And it just started progressing so quickly, and I stole from my parents, I stole from businesses, I sold myself to feed my habit. I just started doing all of these things I would never do, which led to a lot of shame and guilt. And then I would just use more to cover those feelings, and just an endless cycle.
Lexi's dad and I were devastated. It was very hard to continue with just normal life. Nothing out of the ordinary, just trying to live was really, really difficult when you're so worried about your child's welfare, but you just feel like there's just not a lot you can do. And I would say many, many sleepless nights where, we wondered whether the police were going to show up at our door or we were going to get that phone call. It was a very, very tough time for both her dad and I. I have to say, we spent a lot of time wondering, how were we going to keep on going in life without our one and only daughter? That was a truly, truly tough time for us.
After my 5th inpatient rehab with a lot of outpatients and other outside help in between, I was tired. I was so tired of living the life that I was living. And I couldn't function without the drugs, but it was obvious I couldn't function with the drugs. So I didn't really know what to do. And I got to this point where I just thought either I have to change everything or I am just going to use until I die. Like, those are my two options, and I have to be the person who makes that decision. And I wish I could tell you something that sparked or ignited that change, but I don't know what it was. I think it's just different for each person. Everyone, they talk about a rock bottom. I don't know that you have to hit your rock bottom, but I think you have to be really tired of living that life. And definitely having people in my life who supported me and believed in me when I didn't believe in me was super helpful, and I'll never stop being grateful for the people who prayed for me. It saved my life to have people there who wanted something for me that I couldn't see or want for myself.
Lexi did eventually come back around, and she wanted to go to another rehab, and we just told her basically that we didn't want her to quit trying and that we were still holding hope. But I have to say, it was fading fast, but I wanted her to keep trying, and I thought as long as she keeps trying, we have a chance, and she has a chance. Really, more importantly, she has the chance. But it was hard. It was hard to hold out and keep hope up when it was fading quickly.
I had done a year in the program for women's recovery through the Union Gospel Mission in Olympia. I stayed for a year and ended up relapsing, and thankfully they showed me a lot of grace. They let me come back after my last time in rehab, and I've been there ever since. I enrolled myself in school. This was the first time I hadn't had my parents paying my way. It was something that I truly wanted to do for myself, and it gave me some of that self-confidence that I was really lacking. I got a 4.0 my first quarter and continued with that every quarter since, which is, I honestly, I'm smart, who knew? I sure didn't. But it's given me this new outlook on life that I just didn't have before. And it's different for everybody. I'm not saying school is for everyone, but finding something that gave me purpose was and is key to my wanting to stay clean and not go back to using drugs. I don't want this to come off as any of this was easy, because it wasn't easy, or that things changed overnight, or that I don't still struggle, because I do. I guess I just want other people to know that recovery is not this destination. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was a final destination where everything would be great. And it turned out that a lot of the character defects and things that were wrong with me, I thought they'd go away when I stopped using the drugs, but they didn't. They're still there, and there's something that I have to work on every single day of my life. And I don't get it perfect all the time, but I try. And if I can make it through a day without using or doing drugs, even if I just sat on the couch that day, that's a win for me. That's a win. So it's been important for me to not set such high standards for myself, and to just kind of lower it back to simplicity. If you make it through the day and you didn't do drugs, you did dang good that day. So I just got accepted into a university. I got an academic scholarship for my grades, and I just never imagined that this is where my life would be today. And there was so many times when I was ready to give up. I just didn't want to do it anymore. And had I given in or gave up when I wanted to, I wouldn't know any of these feelings were possible. And when you're in that hopeless place, it does not seem like it will ever get any better. And I just want everybody to know that it can. Even when it feels like it can't, it really can. And although it's been really hard, I can't say that I regret anything. Hurting people it's not a great feeling, but I've learned a lot, and I don't know what tomorrow is gonna bring. I wish I could tell you guys I'm gonna be clean forever, but that's just not the reality. I know that today I'm gonna go to bed clean, and tomorrow I'm gonna wake up and try my best, and that's all I can do.
Lexi's demeanor has definitely changed. We see just a peace in her and joy for the first time in a very, very long time. Actually, several years. She seems to be very proud of herself and the fact that she is doing it because she really wants to be clean, and not for anyone else, but for herself.
The last thing that I want to say is that if you or someone that you know or love is struggling, just not to give up. It doesn't matter if you have tried 1 time, 10 times, 100 times. Just keep trying, and the life that you're living today doesn't have to be your life always. So the thing that really kept me going was knowing that I had you in my corner and you never gave up. You know, you just never gave up on me, ever. And when I would be so down on myself and really just hate everything about myself, you would be there saying, "You're the best person I know. You're not acting the best like the best person I know." But you always had that faith in me and saw something in me when I couldn't, and I don't think a lot of other people could. I'm so grateful that you never gave up.
I love you. I'm so proud of you.